It's going.
Good morning and welcome to our Monday morning live. I'm Allie Got Deb, and today we are all about having a great ask. And I'm currently reading a book, so I'll use that term very lightly. I have one of my many books that I'm reading or filtering through right now, and it is Ask, and the universe will listen. And it's all about how can you ask the universe, God, spirit, whatever you want to frame it, for what you want or to deliver you great messages. So it's really got me thinking, because I think it's really common to think of the problem when you're in the problem versus how can you ask in a way that you can get answers or just a different perspective to see the light. So let's say like, how come this is happening to me? Like, this is very much like maybe that victim, like, why is this happening to me, versus how can I see this differently, or what would be a solution for this. I also think when creative problem solving, it's really cool to have a great ask of like, what would be my next best step to get this started. And when I ask that one question, especially in business, or when I'm stumped on something, or I'm not sure what direction to go next, and I ask myself, what is my next best step? It's amazing, just sometimes the thoughts, or someone will call, or they'll just be these little nuances of something that I would have never thought. And it's trusting whatever comes through to move forward. So I'm curious, because it's got me going. It got me going last night of maybe times that I'm asking someone like the same question, or maybe it wasn't the right question to get the right answers, or to filter my life a little bit differently in perspective. Deb, how do you think you ask the universe for what you want?
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, we could have asked this morning as we were having some technical difficulties, but we weren't looking at the problem. We were like, how can we fix this? Can we try this? Can we try this? So but yeah, I get quiet. I like to get quiet and just really like guide me to the solution or guide me on my next steps. Or, you're talking about being solution oriented, but sometimes it's like, what am I supposed to learn during this process that I'm not maybe seeing? Maybe it has nothing to do with the problem at hand. Maybe it's just a lesson that I need to learn in order to move forward, in order to get those nudges from the universe. So I do like to get quiet, and it's being receptive to those messages, because I think a lot of us really want those messages to be like bang in our face, but often they're very subtle. They're subtle nudges. It might be a conversation that I'm having with you, and you say something based on a problem that you don't even know that I might even have. Or it's a signpost, as you're driving. Or for me, sometimes it's just like I open a book and like, what's the first message that I see? Because sometimes that's a good way to get a message as well, if you're really asking the right question. Those are some of the ways that I like to get quiet. I think meditation for me is always it's not necessarily that I'm going to get the answer right then, but then it's being really open to getting those messages, getting the little gentle nudges of where I should go, or solving a problem. What about you?
I love a couple things you said, like what are you learning? Because it's not about, I think, right or wrong, good or bad. Like, you're definitely learning all the time, and sometimes in those situations where it's like, what is going on? Like, that's your greatest lessons to learn from and move through. So I love that, and I love how you're saying it. Maybe the answers aren't as clear or exactly what you want, so it's releasing and surrendering some of that control. I
Absolutely.
absolutely agree. It's like, oh, it wasn't wrapped up in a package neatly delivered like your Amazon. No, definitely not. And how many times has like someone said something, and it's like you're in such resistance to do something new that you really ignore, and it's like it's right here in front of your face. Like, how many ships do you need to save you in the ocean? So anyway, that's one. Those are a couple of things. And what I thought of, like, when you were saying like you like to get quiet, part of flow is like you have like your problem or you have your goal, and that kicks off the flow cycle, and then you have to release. So a release strategy is like meditation, breath work, getting out in nature. And I find for myself, like, if I just leave my environment and totally let it go, and go for that walk or get ready, have my shower, like that is when a lot of magic can happen. So when I'm
Absolutely.
asking those great questions, especially when they're getting a little bit more creative in business, or I know that like I'm stuck in it, it's totally removing myself from the environment. So I don't know if anyone else has those moments when you're just frustrated in front of the computer and it's like it's eating away your brain cells thinking about it. And the best thing to do, I find for myself, like nature, I think just has this calming, grounding ability. And like the fresh air, going for a walk, moving my body, and that walking meditation really helps for me. And sometimes I find as I love human design as well, as a manifestor generator or anyone who's a generator, asking, getting someone else to ask me questions that are yes and no. So I can like, and like move through them. So calling up a friend, or like Deb saying, like maybe she's a catalyst that day because we're talking this morning and it's like, aha, or I can like respond to those things in life, because sometimes questions aren't going to be solved with your own perspective. So it's finding a trusted advisor or someone that can, that you really and like know that will be have that greater, higher aspect to you, and reaching out to them for support, because our problems aren't going to be solved only by ourselves, because if they were, we wouldn't have them. And it, I find, takes that next level to invite someone in and just kind of work through things. And maybe not that they have the answer specifically, though you asking questions can dive a little bit deeper of what's really going on.
I think trusting too. I think I know this was a problem for me a long time ago. It's like you ask the question. So you're asking what's my next step? Where do I go next? How do I solve this problem? What am I supposed to learn? And it's like you get the sign, but you don't trust the sign. And because maybe it's not wrapped up in that fancy bow like we want it to, but are we really trusting them, like trusting the guidance that we're getting and then acting on it? And I think that was always a stumbling block for me for a long time. It's like I'm asking and I want it like on a dartboard to make sure that, is this really the answer? Like, is this really where I'm supposed to go? So really trusting when you are getting those messages or gentle nudges or in a conversation, it's like really acknowledging that that is the answer and then going forward in that path.
I love that, trusting, because it takes a leap of faith, especially if it's uncomfortable, especially if it's not something that you've done before. It's trusting, like, okay, and like I say to clients, if you knew everything like 5 years ago that you'd be in this spot, like no one can predict that. First of all, we had a pandemic. No one was predicting a pandemic and the whole vortex of that energy. And now here it is. Like the answer is, I think, to surrender to something greater and to get support. And like you say, trusting that this is a journey. It's not just that one destination check mark is going to get you there. So I love that, because trust is a huge part of sometimes like, am I not trusting myself? Or am I not trusting other people? And yeah, is the sign big enough or what have you? Like there's so many things. So a great ask. And I think it's like getting maybe a little bit more specific of like asking myself, like, what do I really want? And why is this important? And answering some of those questions for myself too, so that I can differentiate what's going on. One of the questions that I wrote last night was like, what am I really great at? And it was a gentleman through his whole entire life, his grandfather. That's one thing he always asks is like, what are you really great at? What do you love to do? So when you find purpose and passion throughout your life, you can be guided by those things that you really love and make a contribution, and stop fighting yourself or expecting yourself to do something different. So that was the one question that he kind of took for his whole entire life to move along in his career. It's like, okay, what do I really love? What am I really great at? And answering those questions over decades, which I thought was really beautiful, especially for a career journey or getting into flow and building a business. Because when you're in a solo business, like you're in the trenches all day long. So it's a lot easier when you're doing stuff that you love, that passion fuels you forward.
Well, and I think if you know what you're good at, then you also know maybe where you have opportunities to grow, not even necessarily grow, but maybe that's something that you sub out to somebody everybody else. So
Mm.
when you say, yes, you're in the trenches, you have to wear so many different hats all the time. You're the marketer, you're the developer, you're the creator, you're all of it. And so, there are obviously strengths that I have that maybe you don't, and vice versa. So how can you marry those two together? Maybe collaborating with somebody, maybe asking for help, maybe hiring somebody to do some of the stuff that you're not good at. But that's going off into a completely different direction. I like that question of asking, what am I good at? I think any entrepreneur should be able to, or should probably really delve deep into some personal questions on what am I good at? What am I passionate about? What lights me up? Where do I want to go? And I think that's a question. If you don't have the answer, then you can ask this week and ask, and the answer will be delivered. You just have to be willing to trust what you are seeing and trust the guidance that you're given, whether it's in a conversation, whether it's on a signboard, whether it's in a book, however you receive the information. I hope that you trust it. And we will be back on Thursday with another edition of Connected Conversations, and back here next Monday morning to start your week. Have a great week, everyone.